Okay, great. So, welcome back after a prolonged hiatus to Finding Her Voice, a podcast dedicated to women who make film by women, us who love film. Each month, we speak up about a particular topic and or theme in film with examples of films, you guessed it, directed by women. For March, we'll be talking about our favorite literary adaptations with female directors to honor the upcoming A Wrinkle in Time, directed by superstar Ava DuVernay. With the biggest budget ever given to a film directed by a woman of color, there's a lot riding on its release, and I, for one, am ready to be utterly spellbound. I am once again joined by editor-in-chief of The Young Folks, Gabrielle, and writer AJ, who currently is helming a fantastic 52 Films by Women weekly column, also at TYF. Before we kick things off, a small housekeeping type of note, if I could speak. While brainstorming for this episode, I put the question out there to the film world that is Twitter about adaptations directed by women, as I was under the very false impression that there weren't a ton of options, and I was decidedly wrong. However, this comes more from the fact that I don't read much / at all anymore, and not that I didn't realize Cloud Atlas and or Mudbound were directed by women. More, I simply forgot they were books. Still not an awesome look. But to kick things off, I wanted to ask both AJ and Gabby, which book and or book series do you wish were directed by a woman? AJ, do you want to kick things off since I see you have the most notes?
I will. So, two things to preface my choice of David O. Russell's Silver Linings Playbook. It's by no means a bad film. You know, it's an Oscar winner, so I'm not denouncing any of that or saying, hey, it shouldn't have won. I saw it in theaters when I was 18, and I was content with the time that I spent with it, but I haven't revisited it since, which is kind of odd because usually if it wins an Oscar, I'm going to watch it a couple times because it's that good. It got nominated for a reason. But yeah, I haven't watched it since because I felt something was missing from it. And second, author Matthew Quick's novel is told from the perspective of Pat Peoples. They changed it to Pat Solitano in the movie adaptation. So it's not as if it's a man telling a woman's story, but the narrative is so nuanced. It deals with mental health issues, grief in various capacities, redemption, reunion, realization. And I just feel like it might have been brighter and more tender with a woman at the helm. The trend of female directors handling emotion better or in different ways than men is something we've discussed a lot on the podcast, and I think it holds true with Silver Linings Playbook.
I wonder if Jennifer Lawrence's character would have been both cast differently also, and if she would be presented a little less quote-unquote shrill.
Yeah, I think
it could have been directed by a woman as well.
Yeah. I think she could have been a more sympathetic character, and I think that at that time I may have connected with that character a lot more if she was maybe handled by a female director.
Was she as comic in the book as, you know, the character is in the movie, or was that kind of played up?
She was just different in a way that I can't pinpoint it. I connected with the book and the book's characterization of everyone a lot more than the movie.
There was just like this character too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe the comedy came from her being cast younger and just as Jennifer Lawrence, and Jennifer Lawrence kind of just brings a comic energy to these kind of roles. But wasn't it originally supposed to be like Anne Hathaway or something?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I think it was.
That would have been completely different, I think.
Yeah,
I'd have to look that up.
I mean, yeah, Jennifer Lawrence I agree with that she does bring like this different type of energy, like a little bit more uppity. And I think in that case, like a lot of her like quote unquote meltdowns in the film were played for comedic effect over just like realizing that, you know, she's in a tough place. So she's going through things.
Yeah. And I mean, my general disdain for David O. Russell doesn't help.
I knew you were going to mention that.
But like beyond that, and like in all fairness, which I don't particularly feel like granting him, I did like Silver Linings Playbook.
Yeah.
It was prior to what I knew about him now. I think I can separate it in this instance because it doesn't feel like a O. Russell product in the same way that Joy in American Hustle and The Fighter do. Like it feels enough like an actor's work than a director's work. But I do think if it had more of a feminine touch, or just like somebody who understands, the female psyche, which clearly O. Russell doesn't. I'm not convinced he's ever spoken to a woman. But I totally agree. That's a really good pick. I haven't read the book though.
So. It's really good.
Clearly you like it so much. I'll have to add it to my book I'll read in the next 10 years. Gabby, how about yours? Because I already see yours and I agree with it also.
The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. Yeah, I chose that. I mean, it has the original trilogy was made in Sweden. And the first movie is directed by Niels Arden Oplev. And then obviously most of us know about the David Fincher version that came out now 7 years ago, I believe.
Oh,
so I can't. But yeah, I just feel like the heart of that series is Elizabeth Salander, and I feel like Stieg Larsson, the writer of that series, while I enjoyed the books, I never really cared for how he characterized. Well, I liked how he characterized her, but I didn't like the situations that he put her in, and I also felt like, do you know what's that term? And I'm racking my brain for it. When an author kind of like projects themselves into the protagonist and kind of like
self-insertion.
Yeah, something like that. Where he's the I forgot the main protagonist's name in that series.
I just did too because I was going to talk about it also.
But he's like kind of like basically who Stieg Larsson was, but like cool, more James Bondy, sleeping with women, like ultra suave, kind of like that. So I find that obnoxious, and I feel like a woman director would totally tone that down, make it more about Lisbeth, and just, I don't know, kind of turn out a more like interesting film, based off her and her experiences. So yeah.
I mean, granted, I really, really loved the Fincher version, but I think that was mainly because I thought Rooney Mara and Daniel Craig had like an absurd level of like screen melting chemistry, which I didn't anticipate. But I think with scenes like that rape scene, which the film is kind of built around, and I feel like people who haven't read the book or seen the films, like that's how they know it, is they know there's this brutal rape scene. Like I think I would have felt not comfortable, like that's totally the wrong word, but like I would have felt like it would have been in safer hands if a woman had directed it. But I'm also coming off of my Red Sparrow hate. Had a rape scene also, and I'm just like tired of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think they could have maybe handled it delicately.
Yeah, I mean, I love the David Fincher one too. I mean, I'm a huge David Fincher fan, just like putting that out there. But like, I think if you also like, if you've read the rest of the series, you could see where like a woman director would be a much more interesting pick for it, just because it really does begin to center more on Lisbeth and her background and her history. And I mean, I just can't help but like feel like it would just benefit from it, definitely.
Is the one with Claire Foy, does that have a director yet?
I don't know, actually. I was just thinking, it's like Girl.
Like, that'd be a good
in the Spider's Web, right?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, because like as much as I'm distressed that Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara aren't coming back, that poor woman getting so many piercings to not have a trilogy out of it. But I just feel like I don't know. I feel like this is an opportunity, at least maybe, to give it like somebody like Suzanne Beyer, who did The Night Manager. Like she would be wonderful for this type of thing.
She would.
But I feel like there is maybe
It is. It's Fede Alvarez.
Alvarez. I was just gonna say
Yeah.
Who?
Fede Alvarez.
He did Evil Dead and Don't Breathe.
Oh.
Yeah, like horror films that I did not see, so I cannot judge.
Doesn't Don't Breathe have like kind of a sexual assault unnecessary thing like at the end of the film? Like I don't see these movies because they're scary and I'm a wimp, but I'll go on the parents' guide sometimes if I'm curious what happens. And I feel like I read that. Like, I don't know. But whatever. I don't want to spoil Don't Breathe. Whatever. So my pick is like a little simpler, kind of, I guess, because it's Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and I do have reasons, and not just like that David Yates is a non-director and I'll hold a grudge against him for ruining my favorite book of the series like forever. And I know that's really childish, but it is what it is. But first, like all the reasons that people didn't love that book are the reasons why I did love that book. I loved angsty Harry Potter. And I thought, in retrospect, I'm like, well, he's clearly had like some PTSD and extended trauma because he was tortured and somebody died in front of him. And in the book, like they do that, they kind of explain it with like a lot of caps locks and like furious boy teenage pain and whatever. But I think in a film, it could have been so emotionally complex. And I think, you know, a female director might have gotten over the quote unquote like ick factor that is emotions and fantasy. And I just think it could have really like allowed the series to grow in a way that Alfonso Cuarón's version of Azkaban did. You know, it's just having a mature director who actually is a director, not just somebody like funneling out installments, I think just could have like greatly aided. And I just think specifically having a female director, beyond the fact that there wasn't a single female director in the entire run of the 8 films, which is embarrassing. I just think it could have brought that touch of being fearless in showcasing emotions, especially with the friendship groups and the themes of family and the themes of loss and trauma. So, you know, I mean, and I want to see more female directors in genre films, period. But as a series that's so shaped my adolescence, I think seeing such an emotional story in a fantasy setting directed by a woman would have meant a lot. And it would have meant a lot in a way that I might not have like grasped at the time. But growing up, I would have been able to see the seeds as something different. So that's my pick.
That is a great pick, because I was thinking Harry Potter too, because if I think about a book series that has sort of followed me through my formative years, like the Harry Potter books did, and eventually the movies as well, it would be that. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you about David Yates being a non-director. I just think the last 4 movies, were they were good only because of the material and the actors, but not necessarily because of him.
God, no. He made weird choices.
Right. So I have a feeling they're going to reboot it down the line. It'd be interesting to see if they actually do hire female directors.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the point that a reboot would happen, it would be ridiculous not to.
Mm-hmm.
And like rather tone deaf. But, and especially with a female writer in charge of the universe, granted, that writer has been a pain in the ass lately, but like regardless, it's still like significant. So I don't know. The future will tell, and I would be really excited to see that. But who knows? But moving on to films, adaptations directed by women. A Wrinkle in Time, at the time of this recording, is coming out this upcoming Friday. I don't think any of us have seen it because the screenings are being like really held off on for most critics groups, I think. But I am very excited for this movie. I'm very excited that this and films like Annihilation and Black Panther are all coming out within the same couple months, because it's showing these like daring and diverse big concept science fiction films or fantasy films. And I already know I'm going to go to bat for this film in a way that, like, if everybody was already loving it, I might not. But because I see some male critics already speaking poorly about certain aspects that I know they'd celebrate in a male-driven film, hello, Annihilation, I just, like, it's like I'm already going in with this, like, kind of fists up mentality, because I just feel like I'm going to love it. And there is a critic I love, Todd Vanderwerf, who said that it doesn't just wear its heart on its sleeve, but it wears its heart as its shirt. And that appeals to me so directly. And I just feel like people don't like sincerity in films, But like for me, it's like this is a female-directed, cerebral, and unclassifiable science fiction fantasy hybrid that's earnest with a diverse cast and a bearded Chris Pine. Like, this is everything I want or need in a film. So I'd rather go and see a film that's big and miss the mark a touch than see a film that's playing it safe and kind of boring, like, you know, The Darkest Hour or something. So I don't know what you guys are feeling kind of going into it, but I have a lot of feelings, clearly.
I'm in the same boat. I think a lot of my feelings don't stem from the source material necessarily, but everything around it. Like you mentioned, it's female directed, it's sci-fi, but it's fantasy, but it has all these connections to like family and what it means to be a young girl and self-discovery and all this good stuff. But everything that has come out around it leading up to its release, I'm sure you two have seen that tweet where someone is griping about how the film's poster isn't appealing to young boys because of its pastel colors. And it's like, well, don't you want young boys to go see the movie anyway? And I've seen some takes that I can't tell if they're intentionally edgy or if the person really thinks this way, claiming that the film is too much following Black Panther. Like, we can only celebrate a certain number of movies with, you know, people of color in the lead roles. So all of this, I'm just like, no. I'm very hopeful that it's going to be stellar enough to shut all the naysayers up. But I think that even if it doesn't, like you said, doesn't live up to every expectation, and maybe it misses the mark, but still goes hard, I think that it's going to be great. And yes, the bearded Chris Pine. I don't know why everybody sleeps on Chris Pine. He is a man. That's what I have to say about that.
He's arguably the best Chris in my mind, but
right?
That's a whole other argument.
Everybody wants to say he's number 4 on the Chris list. I'm like,
wait, bullshit.
No.
Yeah, no, I'll join and say, yeah, I love Chris Pine. I think he's the best Chris too. But yeah, I am excited for Wrinkle in Time. I actually just finished rereading the book yesterday, so it's a little fresh in my mind. And as usual, that ending makes me very emotional.
I never read the book.
Oh my god!
I read it a million years ago, and I can't remember everything.
I think I got it mixed up with A Never-Ending Story or something. Was that a book too, or was it just a movie?
Well, actually, I don't know now. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you. There is a book and Never-Ending Story, so.
Damn it. Sorry, continue.
Anyway, yeah, but it's fresh in my mind, and I really, I don't know, just, I guess just based on the fact that I love the book, I'm very excited for the movie, and I've been excited for it because I love Ava DuVernay. I think she's an incredible director, incredible advocate for people of color and women in film, especially right now when the industry needs it more than ever. And, you know, I think it's just impressive to me. Like, the trailers look amazing. They're beautiful, colorful. You know, I think
colorful is such a key thing here too, because I think we've talked on here before, or at least I've talked on everywhere before, that I love color in film, especially blockbusters where you see so many muted things.
Right. And yeah, and this one's just like, it's like a rainbow. It's like beautiful, you know? And I don't know. I just am very excited for it. And I feel like, I think a lot of the criticisms kind of remind me of what critics were saying when Brave came out, the animated Pixar film. It's sort of in the same vein, just like, you know, it's like there's something missing about it, or something. I guess they're faulting it for not being able to connect with it as much as they usually connect with movies. Do you understand?
Yeah, no, because men have always been able to like self-insert themselves to male characters, and women have always been asked to do that with male characters, and now it's like being flipped.
Right.
They don't recognize themselves. They're like, what is this? Exactly. It doesn't play exactly to me and how I understand life.
Yeah, and Meg Murray is definitely not a character that like everyone can really insert themselves in. She has a very strong personality. At least in the book she does. And I imagine, you know, Ava DuVernay can keeps that alive, by choosing Storm Reid to be her performer. So I just imagine that maybe that's one reason. I don't know though, because like you said, it hasn't been screened yet. I think I have a screening tomorrow night actually, so I'm hoping I'll be able to make it. But other than that, yeah, I just find like a lot of the criticism kind of like reminded me of Brave.
I get that one.
Which is interesting.
And I loved Brave.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, I saw that and I'm like, I connected with it instantly because I think anyone who's had like an antagonistic relationship with their mother knows how that feels.
So. That movie made me cry, and I saw it with my sister, and we were like alone in the theater, like bawling. So clearly we're in the right mood for it, or just like emotionally easy. But yeah, I love that film. So that's interesting to compare the two. But I'm also hearing that it's kind of like, and I think this is like a really simplistic way of like describing it, but I see people kind of comparing it to Annihilation, where it's like big and cerebral and the science fiction isn't like easily defined, but in kids movie version. So that's why I'm getting like annoyed when I see people complaining. I'm like, weren't you guys, including myself, last week just like falling over yourselves to be the one who like compliments this film the loudest? So like now when, it's still a female driven cast, but it's actually directed by a woman, it's like less appealing. I don't know. It's so interesting because clearly they have an easier time kind of connecting with women who have been directed by men than women, which is troublesome.
It is.
It's just kind of gross. It made me mad right now. Like,
especially because this also has like a young female lead too, which, just sort of adds like just something else to it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I can't fucking wait. But
yeah, me too. I'm so excited. And like you, I think I'm gonna be up to bat for it. And just because kind of like what you said about what that one critic said, like it wears its heart on its shirt. And like that's very true about the book. I mean, you could feel the love, the longing, all those feelings. It's like packed with feeling, that book. And
yeah.
That's probably how the movie's gonna be. So I'm really excited.
So now that we've talked about Wrinkle in Time, and if you heard this weird little pause, it's because I just had to go buzz my boyfriend into my apartment because I didn't plan things well. But so for this week, our whole big thing is picking our favorite or one of our favorite book adaptations after that kind of whole Twitter upheaval. But so I'm curious if one of you want to start with what your favorite adaptation was.
I guess
okay, go AJ.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay. This, I guess it surprised me even when I thought of it as kind of a standout adaptation, but it's Before I Fall. Ryver's a Young directed, based off the book of the same name by Lauren Oliver. And I don't know if you guys remember seeing a trailer for this film that really played up the romance rather than the actual plot.
I don't recall. I mean, I saw the movie, but I don't recall the trailer for it.
Yeah,
I know they had the boy featured more than I think he probably ended up being in the film.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I haven't seen.
Yes. So I saw that trailer and I was intrigued. So I was like, I want to see what the actual book is about before kind of passing judgment. So I read the book and it's extremely interesting. I mean, it's YA and it's kind of predictable. It kind of goes through the motions. But I think both of you can agree that any film or any story that deals with teenage psychology and like girlhood and kind of coming of age from a female perspective is just, I'm a sucker for that. And Before I Fall handles that in a really interesting way. And it just explores consequences, and you follow Sam, Zoe Deutsch plays her, follow Sam's journey from being this kind of I'm popular and everybody likes me, and Rob, my boyfriend, is just the best, and my friends are cool and we like to party. She journeys from that into someone who is aware of actions and consequences, and realizes that there's more to life than just being in your own little bubble. And there are bursts in the movie and in the novel, I think it translates really well. There are bursts of just, I've been in this situation before, even though it's kind of, I don't want to spoil anything, even though it's a little bit larger than life, definitely. There are bursts of moments where I'm like, I've lived this. I've been in that like intimate moment with Sam's talking to her parents and talking to her friends and struggling to convey an emotion that other people may not understand. I've been in those situations before. And I think it's just a very relatable story, even with all of like the fantasy elements. And I don't know, it just stands out as something that the book to the movie, it translates really well. And I think that a lot of the emotion that is conveyed comes from it being directed by a woman.
I feel like people kind of passed over it too last year because they're kind of like, oh, another young adult book, whatever. It's past that time. But, and I mean, granted, I didn't see it. I did go to see it today because I saw it was your pick, and I was like, I should watch all of them, but I had to rent it.
Yeah.
And I was like being really cheap, and I was like, oh, I'll just let everybody else talk about it. But I really wanted to see it actually last year. But I just had like nobody who wanted to go with me. So, and I just like, I don't know, I just never got around to it. But I did love the idea that it looked like it was very relationship driven, but not necessarily romantically. Like you said, was kind of the highlight of the trailers. Like it did look like friendship and like female friendship, which was a lot about on this podcast. Is like kind of so infrequent in film unless you search for it like we do. And I kind of loved the idea that beyond the life and death scenarios going on in the supernatural, like that was kind of its core, was how she bettered herself. But I haven't read the book because, as we've established, I don't know how to read, and and I didn't see the film. But Gabby, you said you saw the film. Did you read the book too?
No, I didn't read the book, but I'm fairly familiar with the book and how the concept is sort of like
I wikied it.
Yeah, how it's done in there. So I really liked the movie. I thought it was interesting, and I agree with what both of you said, how it explores her relationships. You know, and they're not the romantic ones, but the ones with her friends, especially, and those dynamics and how they influenced her and how she realized, why they were acting the way they were acting, and they dug into it, and there's a lot more to uncover, which was very interesting.
I just think the way that it was marketed, and maybe even the title, like Before I Fall, kind of linking to a romantic relationship, I think a lot of people just glossed over it because they thought, oh, it's like going to be all about her relationship with her boyfriend, and he's going to swoop in and save the day, and it's going to be about that. And so I don't know. It's just a shame that it got kind of passed over.
I think like just YA movies get like dismissed like that easily. I mean, everything came out last year as well, and that was directed by a woman. And I really liked that movie. I definitely think there was some like problematic issues with it, like, but I think that just came from the novel. But I thought it was very well directed and was very bright and colorful too. So, which I like.
It was. I watched that recently a couple weeks ago. And my whole thing was that, like, Teen Me would have freaking loved that movie. Because it's like there's a lot of gaps in the storytelling. Like, we don't really get a, like, bridge between point A and point B. It's just kind of like she sees him, they fall in love, and whatever. But everything surrounding it was so interesting. And, like, there are so many other, like, higher concept or, like, more prestige dramas that do the same thing. but they just have like kind of a shinier veneer to them that I feel like people don't care as much. But yeah, no, I like films like Everything I think are worth seeing in the same vein that Before I Fall are, you know. It's just kind of opening your eyes to a different perspective and a different kind of group, you know. Like, I don't think YA is just dismissible. I think there's a reason why people like it. So there's a reason why you should maybe just invest a little bit of time to see what it's about.
Right. Oh, I agree, and I wish critics were as open-minded as we are about it.
They're just smaller pockets of them because they're women.
Right.
It's just because everything else is dominated. But I do, because I mean, you know, when you look at both these, like if we're going based on a score, like if we look at Rotten Tomatoes, which we know isn't actually like always a factual like
representation
barometer or whatever of what it is, like it does give us an idea, and like both of them are hovering in the middle. It's not like it tanked. It's like they got 50s and 60s. So it's interesting to kind of go through the critics and are like, who are the positive ones? Because those are the ones I want to seek out. And like, if it's all women who liked it, I'm going to probably want to watch the movie. Like, in all honesty, because sometimes like the people who really champion these movies that are like loudly derided by others, I'm like, well, like what's making you champion it? So both of these were kind of like that. But I guess moving on, Gabby, what was your pick?
I picked Clueless, the 1995 classic teen film by Amy Heckerling that I love that movie like to death. And I remember watching it when I was like 6 years old. I did not understand half of it, but I loved it. Like it was just like Cher, like Alicia Silverstone was like everything that I wanted it to be, and as a 6-year-old. So but yeah, other than like just that kind of background, I just think, you know, Amy Heckerling kind of took this classic Jane Austen book, which I've read. It's not necessarily my favorite Austen, but it's, you know, it's solid. And she kind of really did a fabulous job by making it just this modern take and commentary on teenagers in America, especially affluent ones. And she made it, you know, it was sharp, it was funny. It said a lot of things about culture and society at that time. And it was just like massively entertaining. And again, just like so smart. I mean, and I think a lot of people assume that like teenage films like aren't smart or they're kind of dumbed down or stuff. And she kind of made the case like, no, it could be funny, it could be smart, it could be ridiculous, but it, you know, it could be all these different things because that's how teenagers are. So yeah, that's my fave.
I only saw that one for the first time maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I guess. So I feel like I missed like the cultural moment of it, I guess. Like, but I still really enjoyed it. I thought she, I'm forgetting the actress's name, Alicia Silverstone or something. I thought she was great, but I hadn't seen the movie right before, but I had watched Braceface as a teen.
I loved Braceface.
Right? But it was so, I saw it and I was like, who is this? Like, I know her. But beyond that and like that weird like nostalgic trip that I took because of it, like I thought it was wicked witty. Like it's just, I think it's a lot sharper than people give it credit for. Like I know it's kind of seen as a coming of age classic, but I also feel like people don't give it as much credit as it deserves for its script. Like it's wicked funny.
Yeah, it's so good. Like I just, every time I watch it, like I'm just like so amazed by how good that movie is. And I mean, it's a movie that's followed me throughout most of my life, obviously. And I don't know, I just always liked it. Like, I mean, again, it was always interesting to me, even when I was too young to understand like half the jokes and situations.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been me because it was kind of like, I don't know. I feel like it was like a precursor almost like Mean Girls in a sense, right? Like
Yeah, it
not
definitely
totally,
is.
but in the sense that it like came out at a certain moment and everybody was quoting it because it like spoke to their experience or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like I definitely think like Mean Girls owes a few things to Clueless, but it's still its own movie. And I hate this whole like weird debate like Mean Girls is better than Clueless. It's just made for
That's such
different
a
generations. Oh yeah, like there's people who argue like just like usually the generation like right before us or like the older version of the millennials, like they totally stand for Clueless. And then there's like the people like my age when Mean Girls, because I was a freshman in high school when Mean Girls came out. So it's like really for kind of like my like around my age group.
yeah.
So they're always more Mean Girls, but I'm like I was more Clueless. But either way, they're still both really good movies.
Exactly.
So.
I mean, I'm definitely more Clueless, but that's because I didn't like Mean Girls, I'll say, as also a millennial who saw it, and I know that like goes against our guidelines, perhaps. But I fucking love Clueless. But I do agree that they're not that comparable. I'm just saying in the sense like a cultural moment movie type sense, you know?
Yeah.
But like when you actually compare them, I guess beyond like the clicks and stuff like that, like
Well, I mean, they're both witty movies. They're both, I mean, they kind of, they're not exactly the same again. Like, you're right. Like, they're not really comparable outside of cultural moments. And the fact that they're both kind of making sort of a commentary on today's young women.
I think Clueless is more sympathetic to the teen girls though than Mean Girls is, and I think that shows what happens when you have because I know it was written by Mean Girls was written by Tina Fey, but it wasn't directed by.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So I think that shows you kind of the difference is like, you know, one version sees me teenage girls as scary, which hey, sometimes true. Clueless sees them like as just complex and
That's
like
so
insecure
true.
and not necessarily just mean for the sake of being mean. Like they show motivation.
Yeah. I think that's why I always liked it because all the girls in there, they were out to get something. They were out to better. I mean, she was such a force of nature, you know? And I
But she's
think
also
that's
really sweet. Like I never thought she was
she's also
mean.
very nice. And she always had good intentions. And I think also too is like, um, I just blanked. I'm so sorry. No, I just find that like you said, yeah, Mean Girls. I mean, all the characters are there for like comedic purposes, and I think in Clueless they're there to kind of like tell you a story and just share what it's like to be a teenager. I don't know.
I agree. I mean, I saw Mean Girls when I was 10 because that's when I was that old when it came out. And I was prepared for high school to be just everybody's mean, and even the nice people are going to end up being mean, and it's just going to be.
And everybody looks like Rachel McAdams.
Yeah, and it's just going to be a hellscape, and you have to look like you're 30 years old in high school. I mean, she wasn't 30 then, but you know what I mean.
She was close. Her
Close
and
to-
Amy
yeah.
Poehler had a very short window of years between.
Oh yeah, they were like 6 years apart. It was wild. But I was just prepared for, you know, my teenagers to be awful because of that. Because that's what I was prepped for, you know, in the media, and that was kind of the touchstone cultural piece that you had to look to. And then I watched Clueless when I was actually in high school, and I was like, I relate with this so much more. So much more nuanced. So
I mean, granted, my teenage years were terrible, but not in the way
that
they were going to be. More eternal, less bullying.
Mine were a lot. They were bad in a more complex way.
Less fights in the lunch room.
Yeah. And no Aaron Samuels.
No what?
No Aaron Samuels to fight over.
No.
No.
God. So I'm going to segue here because Clueless, which I always forget, it's based off of Emma by Jane Austen. And I feel like mine, like I always make this comparison because like, you know, I always had a cousin who wanted to be the Liz Bennet growing up, and I always wanted to be Jo March from Little Women. So I know both of you guys have not read the books, and I really, really take that as a personal offense. But have you guys seen the 1994 version of the film?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Well, okay, that's good then. If not, I've stopped the podcast. I just hold this so dear to my heart, and I think I've even talked about it, but I'm not like 100% sure. I think I just talk about this movie to such an extent that I assume I've told everybody about how much I love it. But it was directed by Gillian Armstrong. It was not the first adaptation. I've seen one of the other ones, the one where Vivien Leigh, I think, plays Amy, and I just didn't gel with it as much. And I also just think that the cast for the 94 version was perfect. And I think Winona Ryder captured Jo's spirit in a way that it spoke to me, is putting it in a really like general terms. But the thing that I love about Little Women, and the thing that I love about the specific adaptation of it, is that as I've grown older, I discover new things about why I love it. And I saw it really young. I saw it, probably for the first time right around when it came out. And I read it soon after, and I always loved Jo, and I loved her tomboy nature, and I loved that she cherished her hair the most as her one true beauty, because I felt similar, and like she was a writer, and she was just a general mess. But when I was a kid, I was really rooting for her and Laurie, and was just like heartbroken when they didn't get together. And as I got older, I realized that, her and Laurie weren't meant to be, and that was all right. I realized that Laurie's story is so much sadder when you realize he just wanted a family. And the thing that really grows in me is the relationship with the sisters. And as a kid, I think it's really easy to what am I thinking? I think it's really easy as a kid to like hate the Amy character, and as you get older, you just have such sympathy for her. And I don't know if it's just Kristen Dunst or whatnot, but it's just the relationship between the sisters is so the focal point of the film and the story. And I don't find a lot of movies like this where it's literally like you just see their lives and how their relationships change and how they mature. And I just have such a connection to the March Girls that's going to follow me, I think, for the rest of my life as I try to introduce it to other people. But yeah, I mean, it's just essentially one of my top 3 films of all time. And I think film would be better if they took more hints from what Little Women did, because what Little Women did was really complex and they made it look easy. So now I just need to watch this movie again and cry when Beth dies.
And now I need to read the book and cry when a lot of people die.
Oh, it's miserable.
Yeah. You made me really want to rewatch the movie now.
I know. I'm like filled with like, I need Little Women.
That makes me so happy. But I mean, there's a small part of me that still mourns her and Laurie not getting together, and I think that's just like the romantic, like, but they were made for each other. They were best friends, and Christian Bale was such a babe. But then again, it's like she gets to go and be her own person and meet Gabriel Byrne and whatever. And yeah, I love this fucking film. Clearly, I need to write like an opus about it. But so branching off of this, and I kind of thought of this last minute, so apologies, but what are some books that you would love to see adapted by a female director? And I love both of your picks so much. Gabby in particular, right when you said it, I was like, that's perfect. So I don't know if you want to start.
Yes, because I want to hear what she has to say.
Okay, so I don't know how many people know of the graphic novel Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, but it is freaking amazing. It is really, really weird and just totally out there. And I mean, like, you guys, it'll blow your mind. Every issue I get, I'm always like, why do I have to wait a month for the next one? So with that in mind, I always think that it definitely is the type of book series or comic book series that should be adapted by a woman. I mean, it's centered on, you know, a young girl. It's from like literally starts at the day of her birth, and as her and her parents try to like escape all the dangers in the galaxy that are after them. And it just there's a lot of relevant themes it explores, and it's just, you know, it's utterly heartbreaking at moments. And then it becomes completely joyous at others. So I just feel like, I mean, I know it's very hard to adapt given just how crazy it is, but I think that if anyone could adapt it, it could be a woman. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so weird that like
It is so weird.
And I think the people behind it, and I've only read one issue because I don't understand the process of buying like graphic novels. It might make me old or whatever, but it's because I got into it so late that I'll just like buy one a year. But I did read the first one because I think I had just seen you talk about it, Gabby, a lot, and I was like, I should probably try this. Same with Miss Marvel, actually. But I feel like the writers of the comic probably would be pushing for a female director too, just the way they are, right? Like they seem pretty progressive. Although I think they wanted Lin-Manuel for a second.
Yeah,
which is fair.
He's a good pick, but I also feel like, I mean, I don't know. I just the fact that, you know, it is a story written by a guy, but it's drawn by a woman, and I think through her art, I mean, she has amazing art in this series, and her perspective and the colors she chooses and just her designs, and overall you could really see kind of like her influence into his story. And I think that just like, in my opinion, makes it like it's like a perfect reason to get a female director to kind of mind this project and bring it to life cinematically.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the way that it's drawn puts the females in or women in more empowering positions, like literally how they're drawn makes them look more powerful because it's drawn by a woman than I think if it was drawn by a guy, especially in comics when you see like how guys draw women and you don't think they know what anatomy is. Right. Because like there's just no way. Yeah, I think that's such a cool one, and I would love to see that just get adapted. I don't know if it ever will. It seems impossible, but we keep getting these adaptations that everybody thought was impossible before. So maybe it'll become more likely.
I would want to see Brian Vaughn's Paper Girls get adopted as well. That's not my actual pick, but Gabby saying Saga Paper Girls, his Paper Girls would be amazing as a film.
I've been meaning to read that one, and I haven't yet.
Oh, it's so good. It's really good.
Okay,
it's very like Stranger Things core group of girls, but they're all 12 and they're just so cool.
Oh, okay. That like,
yeah,
that's a good rec to do it that way.
That's you really like sold it like that. So yeah, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah. I'm like, if I was that cool when I was 12, I would be invincible.
Definitely. So I'm gonna go on to mine because I think AJ, ours aren't similar in story, but they're similar in genre in a sense. But like a different generation. Like I think Rainbow Rowell is now kind of the Sarah Dessen to like I don't know. I feel like there are parallels to how they write stories, but mine is This Lullaby by Sarah Dessen, and I'm forever angry that the only Sarah Dessen adaptation we have is that weird How to Deal one with Mandy Moore, and that's like a combination of two of her books, and like whoever they cast as the lead guy was just so unfortunate and whatever. But I want This Lullaby on screen. I want any of Sarah Dessen's books on screen to like fulfill this teenage girl want in me to see the character Dexter because I fell head over heels for him. I don't know if either of you were as much of a like Sarah Dessen junkie as I was. Like I read Just Listen on repeat, especially like in high school when like things were kind of hard or I'd get into weird moods or places. Like I would just bust that one out and read it in a night, and it would like literally calm my anxiety. So I just have such an attachment to her as a writer, and I know she kind of writes the same things over and over again, where it's like girl has internal family drama, girl meets boy, boy is kind of the backdrop, but he also helps her find herself and whatever, and there's like a mildly happy ending. Like there's some tough things that go into her books, but this lullaby I just was so enamored with. And I think in the vein of seeing in Everything, or Before I Fall, like having good young adult fiction in film isn't a bad thing, especially if it's giving teenage girls this outlet to kind of project themselves onto. And I just think that this lullaby it just always read very cinematic to me. So I would love to see that one, but they could do Keeping the Moon or Just Listen, and I would be just as happy.
I have a thought. Like, you know how Netflix lately has these original movies that are kind of like run of the mill? Like they had Irreplaceable You, and then that one with that funny guy from Pitch Perfect. What's his name?
When We First Met.
When We First Met.
Yeah. And like I watched both of them because, you know, a little masochistic. And they were okay movies. Like they were just totally standard. And I'm like, why are they wasting their money on these movies? Why don't they go like after our bookshelves and get like a Sarah Dessen and make that into a movie? And your market is already on Netflix.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah. Sorry, I just had to like rant about that.
No, that's actually a really good idea though. You know, it's like they could literally make a series of books in Netflix form, like, and you could just go from one Sarah Dessen to the other. Like, I think that's a great idea.
The company's paying something like $8 billion this year, and they want to have 700 original films and TV series.
I know. It's like there's plenty of Sarah Dessen books to fill just like 1%.
You could adapt 20 of her books.
It wouldn't scratch it.
Exactly.
But AJ, what about your pick? Because I took this book out that you're going to talk about from the library, and it was sitting on my bookshelf for a month, and then I had to return it, or else I'd get fined. But I'm going to take it out again because I really wanted to read it.
You talking about Harry Potter and how it would have benefited from a female director made me think Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I think that, yeah, it has obviously a lot of the same elements thematically and story-wise. It's about a young wizard who goes back to his wizarding school, and he is the chosen one, and he has to defeat this big evil force. But it's about a lot more than that, and themes of queer love and kind of tensions between different socioeconomic classes and just self-discovery in general. And it's kind of a very beautiful coming-of-age story between two young men and the people in their lives and the people that are important to them. And I think that seeing that world of fantasy on screen, especially from a novel that was written by a woman, having that directed by a woman would be just perfect. And it would fill the hole David Yates left. Or at least it would start to, I would hope.
Sorry, my guttural.
Just
I agree. I've only actually read, and by read I mean I listened to the audiobook by Rainbow Rowell. I read that Eleanor and Park book. And by the way, I used to read excessively. It's really just been in my adult exhausted life that I don't. But other people find time to read, so I really have no excuse. But I've only read Eleanor and Park, and I do appreciate that she seems to cast a wider net for characters than most YA does. But I also think YA is growing increasingly diverse. So, but Carry On, I think, would really be like kind of a cultural like timestamp if that got made, you know, a fantasy film with like a gay protagonist and a gay central romance. Like that'd be insane. It did also, I have to shove this in here because if for some reason this made me think of it. Any and all Patrick Ness books being adapted.
Oh my God, yes.
Because You Think Carry On made me think of The Rest of Us Just Live Here, and I know that can't be adapted, but that led me to More Than This, and I desperately want More Than This to be adapted into a movie. And I know they already have oh shoot,
A Monster Calls.
The Monster Calls, and they have the next one coming up with Tom Holland and
the Chaos Walking.
Yeah. So I know his film's already being made, but if we can just ride this wave of realizing how wonderful of a writer Patrick Ness is, and how clearly his books are made for female-driven directors, I just think that'd be excellent. And yeah, it made me think of Carry On for some reason, or I correlated the two, and I don't know if it's just because they're kind of again widening the what kind of people are in the books, or the diversity in the books. But yeah, I think that'd be a great pick. So for our end segment, instead of me just kind of getting awkward and just abruptly ending as I want to do, I want to start this new thing where we each kind of pick one thing to recommend that we've been reading, watching, or listening that we think is worth checking out. And it could be directed by a woman. It could just have or not just directed by a woman, clearly, for listening or reading or whatever. It can have a heavy female presence. It can just be kind of feminist in its views. But I think, I think we're all watching and reading some really interesting things, and that it's worth kind of highlighting. So do either of you want to start? Or do you want me to go ahead and do it? Because I know, how about this? I'll go first. A new album came out on Friday by Camp Cope, and they're this Australian punk feminist band, and the album's called How to Socialize and Make Friends. And they're just unabashedly angry, and I love it. And I'm writing my review right now for the young folks, and my whole thing is I'm drawing a comparison to a couple years ago where at a party I got into a fight with somebody, a man, about feminism and how he doesn't think it's a thing, and I got angry because that's what you do when somebody's an idiot. And he told me very calmly and condescendingly that he was so sorry for how angry I was. Yeah. I didn't hit him. I made a telephone pole on the way out, which is a whole other issue. But my whole thing is relating the two is Camp Cope is telling you, you don't have to apologize for being angry. You're right to be angry. You don't have to be calm, and you don't have to present female anger as a way that's demure and not hysterical because you're worried that that's what people are going to think of you. It's just kind of lean into how angry you are. There's a reason you're feeling that way. So I really love their music. I would really at least check out this song called The Opener. You put the clip in the post that we do for it, because it's just, they nail some things on the head, to the point where I was laughing out loud listening to it. And I don't know if that was the point. But so if either of you have anything else to recommend, feel free.
I'm watching the show Grownish on Freeform with Yara Shahidi. It's a spinoff of Blackish, and I really like it. I think it's just kind of funny. Not kind of funny. It is funny. I think it's really relatable for people, especially for kind of kids who are, about to graduate or are freshmen in college. And she really kind of deals with, some real life issues in each episode. I think some of the lessons, I guess you could say, are a little too on the nose, but I think the characters and just Yara herself are so charming and so interesting that I kind of forgive the heavy-handedness of it and just sort of sit back and enjoy it. And I definitely recommend it for anyone looking for a really strong, charismatic female lead, kind of going off on her own and exploring what it means to be, an adult.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check that one out, and I did love Blackish, and then I kind of read stuff about Anthony Anderson, and I was like, oh, well, another one bites the dust. But this will kind of a still character I like from that universe. And apparently they're dealing with some themes that you don't see dealt with often in film. So I was going to check that one out. I was waiting for a couple of episodes so I could kind of binge it, since that's what I do with a lot of sitcoms these days.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, like a bulk of it's on Hulu right now. I don't know how many episodes, maybe like close to 10, I think. But
already?
or maybe 6 or 7. I don't know. I watched a ton, and they're so quick because they're only like 20, like 3-minute episodes without the commercials. So
yeah,
you go through it quick.
Oof. You do it, you.
Well, my pick is, I'm not currently reading it, but I always go back to certain essays in the collection. It's The Wrong Way to Save Your Life by Megan Steelstra. And not only is she one of the most, I don't know, just poignant and raw and honest and just funny and humane writers I've ever come across, she's also one of the nicest people. And I took a workshop with her a few years back, and she just breaks people out of their shells, and it's a very daring collection. And I think any woman who has ever felt alone in their life or alone in their womanhood, reading Steelstra's work will change you. And if you don't get your hands on The Wrong Way to Save Your Life, get your hands on Once I Was Cool. It's also a fantastic collection of essays, and you will laugh and cry and feel all of the feelings. So,
is it by the same author?
Same author, yeah. She has 3 collections, I believe, but Once I Was Cool and The Wrong Way to Save Your Life are the 2 that I've read.
They're being added to my Goodreads.
I think she's a teacher at my school.
She might be. She lives in Chicago.
She sounds so familiar.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Okay.
That's a small world moment.
Yeah.
Like to have the specific pick.
She teaches at Northwestern or not, but yeah, that's funny.
Yep, she does. I have the book in my hand right now. In the back cover, she teaches creative nonfiction at Northwestern University.
Oh, freaking way. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna have to seek out like what she's teaching.
Go take a class.
You should. She's amazing.
I am
taking
a creative nonfiction workshop, but it's with a different teacher. But anyway, tangenting. Sorry.
No, it's fine, because that's interesting. That's a weird thing to have like come up randomly. But so I've written down all of these suggestions. Again, I'm going to link to all these things in our post. Thank you all for listening again. We're going to be on this, and I know I say this every time before I inevitably suck and forget to get people to record with me. But we're going to be more regular with this coming up, and we have some cool topics that we're going to be talking about in upcoming months. If there's anything you think we could be doing differently, comment. We are on, what are we on now? SoundCloud. We've hopped around different platforms, but we'll link it. AJ and Gabby, thank you for joining again. And where can they find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at Gabriella Dell.
You can find me on Twitter at AJ_Caulfield. And as Ali mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I'm doing the 52 Films by Women column on Young Folks.
Read it. It makes me seethe with envy on how much I love her writing on it.
Oh, stop.
And you can find me at Allison AJ on Twitter, usually shouting about something. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time. Bye. In a second when I can find the stop button on this.